Oke, di presentation saya sudah recording atau belum? Daripada saya 2 kali udah capek-capek. Recording has started, blah 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 blah. Okay. Yeah, presentation starts now. Hello everyone. Hello, my name is Yoga Pratama. I am from Department of Food Technology, Universitas Diponegoro, Indonesia. And I'm very happy today I'm going to talk about sustainable food systems and food waste reduction in the food chain. I believe you have heard these terms like many times, maybe when you read newspaper, when you watch TV. So this is about sustainability. And this is very important topic to discuss. I'm going to introduce this topic, so it will be very good for you, and then you can also discuss like many topics related to sustainability after that. The presentation will be divided into 3 parts. The first one is I'm going to explain or introduce about food systems and food waste. Second one, I will be talking about the sustainability concept. And the last part will be how to combine both the sustainability in food systems. So this is the first part. We will start by understanding food systems and food waste. I understand that the participants of the summer course are not limited to students who are taking agricultural sciences, or maybe food sciences. But so I designed the course to be very general. I hope that this can be understood by you all. So now, what is a food system? Okay, you have heard this term farm to fork maybe many times, yeah? From farm to fork. So what does it mean? The farm to fork is like the chain or the entire process to get your food from the farm, yeah, where the farmer grows the food, or where the farmers like have the animals, and then they grow the animals, slaughter it, and then they will process it, and it ends up with the food that is served in our plate, and then we eat it using our fork or knife, for example. So a food systems, by definition, is very simple, yeah? So you have the whole chain, the whole process where you get food. It starts with, like illustrated here, I'm going to get my pointer, illustrated here, where it starts with the agricultural land. You grow carrots, for example, here. And then when you have the carrots, it will include transportation, it will include some processing as well. And then it will reach the vendors, where the vendors will sell the product, and then it reaches the customer or consumers. The consumers will prepare it at home, and eventually it will be consumed. I have a bit more detailed illustration here. So when we are talking about the food system or food chain, we should start first with the primary production. So primary production means like when the farmers growing plants, or they have the animal, chicken or cows, for example. So once with the primary production, of course, we will have the harvest. So we harvest those plants, those animal, by slaughtering, for example, or picking the fruits, for example, apples, strawberry. And once we harvest, so this is like the primary produce, right? We need to do some processings. And you are aware that there are so many techniques can be done here. For example, we can do simple processing like simple cut, right? Slicing, for example, or just peeling, for example. But it can be also quite complicated, like, for example, canning. We can do canned food. We can also process it into something completely different. For example, if you have beef, for example, the beef can be further processed into something like meatballs or sausage. So what I can say here is processing can be a lot. There are many, many options there. And also don't forget to reach this, for example, a place for agriculture, reaching the place to process, and further on, it will reach the distribution center, for example. It is all included in the process is the transportation. So you need the transport where you will have the truck, for example. All right. And then at a certain points or at several stages of this process, we will also need a storage where with the storage, you understand we can have it at a room of ambient temperature, but sometimes we could also use a cold storage or freezer storage. So there are several possibilities there. And further on, there will be some selling or distribution where we include the vendor, we will have the market, and then you buy the food, you will bring it home, and then you will prepare the food at home, do some cooking, and later on, there will be some, of course, enjoy it, consumption. Well, what I'm trying to explain here, once you see that the food chains is actually quite a long process, right? You don't have the strawberry immediately appear on your plate, but it go through those several stages, several processes, and at each process, you will have some input. The inputs will be, for example, during the primary production, of course, the farmer will need some water to grow the plant or feed to grow the animal, all right? During the transportation, for example, the transport need the fuel, gasoline, all right? And then also some fertilizer, for example, during the when you grow plants and etc. So many possible inputs. This input represents the resources that we have to take that we need to do the process. So you can see that we need those so that we can eat, right? We need those inputs. And at the same time, we need inputs. During the process, we also do some, what do you call it, like emit some emission. We will produce waste, yeah. And when, for example, when you are washing, when you wash your vegetables, for example, this the water will be contaminated with the soap, and that becomes effluent. It will go to the river, for example, a body of water, and that becomes like kind of like a pollutant, right? So understanding this concept in the food system, food chain, it will help us to understand how we can make this process more sustainable. This just to give you some examples. I believe this is very easy to understand. So I would start with the first example where we have the chicken. I believe almost all of you, if you are not vegetarian, you eat chicken. So when we have chicken, of course, we will have the chicken farm, yeah, on your here chicken farm, or they can harvest the chicken or harvest the eggs, all right? And from the farm, it will go to the slaughterhouse. Okay, slaughterhouse, they will prepare the chicken, they will skin it, slaughter it. And then, for example, here, I just take a picture of frozen chicken, means that after the slaughter, it doesn't go immediately to the consumers. It will be stored, it will go to the market or supermarket, and then it will be purchased by the consumers, and then they will prepare it at home. So you have the cooking step there, and after that, the consumer, in this case, will consume it. All right, this doesn't represent the whole chains. I mean, like if you want to make it even more detailed, there will be some transportation, for example, there will be some waste included in the process. For example, during the slaughter, there are some parts that are not edible, so you have to throw it away, for example. Well, anyway, but I put the last part here. Just imagine, for example, when a kid eating the chicken, sometimes they don't finish it. So what I'm trying to show here is even during the consumption, there will be a possibility of a waste, leftover or uneaten parts. Okay, so that can be also a thing to ponder, and we have to consider that. I will discuss this later on. The second example is corn. Yeah, we eat corn, and corn can be processed or can be processed into several products. Yeah, like the first one is we grow the corn. If you haven't seen the corn plant, it looks something like this. So from the corn, and then you have the grains, yeah, and it can also involve transporting. Yeah, this is the illustration of transport. Then once it is transported, it goes to the factory, for example, it goes to a small production house. And then, for example, here I just put one example of a product coming from corn that is very popular, popcorn. And then from popcorn, we eat it. we enjoy the popcorn during a movie, for example. And then I just give another example of there's a possibility, let's say the popcorn, we spilled popcorn on the floor and it will become waste. So this is another example of food chain. You see the process stages from the very primary step into the final consumption. So what I'm trying to show you with those examples is to understand the concept of food waste and food loss. So what are the differences between those two terminologies? So the food loss occurs normally at the beginning of the supply chain. Supply chain means like from the farm to the fork, okay? Whereas the food waste normally occurs at the end. So this is from the terminology point of view. Food loss is caused by processing. For example, when you do the processing, like let's say you are drying the product. When you dry the product, of course, you will lose some of the water in the product. And that cannot be avoided, right? Because that is part of the processing. You start with, let's say, what is the product? Let's say like dried fruit. You start with 1 kilo, maybe you end up with only like 200 grams of the product. So you lost a bit of the water, okay? And that is caused by the processing. For example, as well, if you do, for example, peeling is necessary, right? You need to peel the product, and then of course you start with some amount, and then later on you will lose some amount of peeled product. Environmental factors, for example, if you have some, let's say, dry weather or cold weather where you will lose some of the crops that you have, and that is loss. I mean, sometimes it cannot be avoided, sometimes it cannot be controlled. Also during the handling, it is very easy to understand. During the handling, when you transport, maybe there's some of leakage, for example, during the transport, and then you lose some of your food. So that is food loss. While the food waste normally is caused by the consumer behavior. All right, so food waste, it happens in restaurant. For example, you go to the restaurant and then you order something and then you don't like it, you don't finish it. So the food is wasted. All right, in retail, you know that the retail like supermarket, they like to stock the product, and then to attract the consumer, to make them buy, one of the considerations of the consumer when they buy the product is the shelf life. For example, if they see the shelf life, let's say, oh, it is ending in 3 days. Some consumers, they don't want to buy it. What if I cannot finish it in 3 days? They would love to have something. Oh, I want to have a bread with 1 week shelf life, let's say. Bread is not very long. The shelf life is not very long. So imagine if you have this stock of bread, it should have a 1 week long shelf life, but because you cannot sell it, and then it will be reduced to only 3 more days shelf life, what you can do? Yeah, okay, we can offer like a discount, for example, for consumer, but eventually, if that is not acceptable by the consumer, again, you will have to waste. All right, so in the retail process, you may also have waste. Also, restaurant practices. Yeah, this is, for example, if they see, oh, this is not good, let's say, what is it? Fruit. They want to buy fruits, they want to serve the fruit, but the fruit is ugly, for example, they can take it away, so it will be wasted again. So you can see the food waste sometimes, yeah, we can avoid the food waste if we do it right. Yeah, but food loss in a certain way, it cannot be avoided because it is part of the process. But now, if you go with the literature, if you read the news, sometimes we combine those two terms together, food waste and food loss, all together. All right, but you can understand actually there are two different terminologies. Why this is important? According to FAO or the UN, United Nations, in average globally, we lost or we wasted about a third of world's food. That is a lot. Yeah. So I have this figure here where that equals 1.3 billion tons of products, or in value it equals 1 trillion US dollars. A lot of money, right? And then if we try to specify this, 45% of all fruits and vegetables are wasted or lost. 35% of fish and seafood, yeah, maybe because of the improper, like not so nice cooling system. Eventually, the fish go bad. Cereals, if you don't keep cereals well, for example, it will become spoiled or molded, yeah, and etc. and so on. Yeah, so you can see there are many ways of the food can be wasted, can be lost, and that made up a big number in terms of value, a third of the whole production. So I would stop here. Yeah, I would stop here, and I urge you not like stop and pause. Yeah, I urge you to pause your video, take your handphone, or yeah, and then take this small exercise. This will be discussed during our face-to-face or synchronous session. I believe it will be on, yeah, few days. And then what I want you to do is please add your own opinion. When the food is wasted, what will be the impact? What will be the impact? And then maybe you can also add your own view on how to reduce the food waste, at least in your own way, surrounding area, for example. Yeah, it will go to Padlet. I hope you know how to do the Padlet. I have already given some example in Padlet. So yeah, please do it. Pause and do on your phone. Okay. Okay. Now we will continue. Now, once you understand the concept of food chain and then the concept of food waste, now we are going to talk about sustainability. Now it will become a bit more complex. Yeah, I mean, food chain is a bit easy to understand. Sustainability concept and then how we assess the sustainability. To understand the definition of sustainability, I will start with this context. So imagine if you know that we cut trees to build houses, to build many things, to make some equipments, right? In the past, before we learned how to use cement, this tree or yeah, it is used a lot, yeah, for our infrastructure. But even now, we still use it regularly for peppers, for example. Yeah. So in the forestry, they have this terminology. They call it maximum sustainable cut. So we learn now the concept of sustainability by looking at the case in forestry. So what is maximum sustainable cut? Maximum sustainable cut defines the maximum amount of tree being cut in a certain period without depleting the trees from the forest. Let's say if you have a hectare of forest and you start cutting them, you know that the forest will need time to grow. The forest or the tree here needs time to grow. Let's say you need like 1 year at least until the tree is big enough so it can be cut. If you don't give the tree enough time or you cut them all at one day, then you don't have any more tree to be cut later on. You see? So this maximum sustainable cut is basically you should know your limit, don't cut too much, and then let the other tree to grow. So eventually you have this in cycle. So you will always have trees to be cut, to be processed. So that is called maximum sustainable cut. I believe this quite easy to understand. Imagine the impact if you don't understand the concept of this maximum sustainable cut. You will cut as much as possible, and then you will end up with a bald or empty forest, and nothing, no trees can be cut anymore. Moving on, in fisheries, we have the term of maximum sustainable yield. So with the maximum sustainable yield, it's quite the same. With the tree, you grow the tree, but in fisheries, the caught fisheries where you don't grow it. I mean, like you go to the sea and then you catch this fish on the sea. You don't really grow it, but the nature grow it, and the nature needs time for the fish to multiply, to reproduce, to grow into a certain size, and so on. So this maximum sustainable yield is defined as the highest theoretical equilibrium yield that can be continuously taken on average. Yeah, imagine that you continuously catch fish in a certain amount, all right, under existing environmental conditions without affecting significantly the reproduction process. So you go to the area, certain part of the sea, right? Oh, this is full of fishes there, and you start catching the fish. Maybe you know that there are several types of what do you call it, like boat, yeah, fishing boat. Some of them sometimes they have like a very big net that it can catch like a very big school of fishes at the same time. But you can do it like once, 2 weeks, but if you keep on doing that without any limit or any consideration, you will end up with an empty sea because you don't give them like time to reproduce. So this is also another theoretical concept in the fisheries, where the fishermen, they should understand, or they should consider what will be the maximum sustainable yield. So there will be like a limit where they can catch fish. Above that limit, it will not be sustainable anymore. Maybe in the future, they don't have any fishes to be caught anymore. So you should start understand the concept of sustainability now. Sorry. Well, here is the dilemma. Now we are coming back to the food system, okay? We have the dilemma. Maybe you have also heard this. There was like a scientist, Thomas Malthus, in the late of 18th century, who said that the growth of population, human population, is growing exponentially or geometrically, whereas the food supply grows arithmetically. So he meant that if we don't control the population, or if we don't innovate in terms of food supply, then eventually the human will be even higher than the available food to supply or to be eaten by the human. So this is one of the biggest and most important challenge that we are faced as a humanity. We are faced with the challenge to provide food to our growing population, right? I believe we are now reaching, is it 9 billion or 10 billions of population, all right? So we need to grow more food. We need to catch more fishes, right? Now, the very important question is how to make it sustainable. As I said, if you catch like fishes as much as possible, then eventually maybe you don't have any more fishes to be catch. If you try to grow food like without any consideration, you can put as much as pesticide, for example, and then you will end up with a ruined soil. So maybe the soil in the future cannot grow any more strawberry for us to eat. So this is a dilemma that we must solve. And then it brings us to the concept of sustainability development. Development means if we want to develop a certain area, how to make it sustainable. All right. Then you have maybe heard, of course, the Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, it has been advertised very, very heavily. Yeah, you see it everywhere. Yeah, Sustainable Development Goals. I think I'm going to go a bit fast here. So when we want to develop something and we want it to be sustainable, at least you must consider three most important aspects. That will be, the first one is the planet, where means like when we develop something, when we want to increase the production of something, we must consider the effect to the planet, all right? Whether the planet will be sustained, or is there any harmful effect to the planet, to our environment. And second one, of course, to the people. Imagine if we want to get like more production of coffee, but the way we do it is by employing a child labor, for example. That is not sustainable way to the people, to the social, or to the community. So we also must take that into account. And the third one, of course, it must be profitable, right? If it is good for planet, if it is good for the community, but it is not profitable, then the process will not be interesting for the company to run. So by combining those three different aspects, then we can have what we call as sustainability in a reality. So sustainable development is defined as how we meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So that is means like, yeah, okay, let's increase the production of rice, for example, but then we must ensure that the future generation, they can still also meet their own their own need of rice. Okay, so all right. Okay, this brings us to very, I like this concept a lot, because this is quite discussed in a high level of conference, for example. We have the concept that is called planetary boundaries. So planetary boundaries is a framework that highlights the rising risk from human pressure on 9 critical global processes. I'm just reading this text. That regulate the stability and resilience of the Earth. Boundaries, planetary. So in a simple way, in simple term, the planetary boundaries means there are several aspects. If we cross this limit, the planet will not survive. Very powerful message, right? So we have this concept where please make sure we don't cross this limit, otherwise the planet will not survive, the planet will eventually collapse. So this is, of course, in terms of the environmental aspect. For example, here we have the biosphere integrity, the diversity. Yeah, if we don't have the diversity, like for example, by like opening up or getting rid of the forest, then we will lose our diversity. The climate change, all right, land system change. If we take the forest all and then convert it into housing, or for example, into agricultural land, fresh water. If we don't have enough fresh water, what happens? Yeah, you can imagine, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Also here, this what is it? Stratospheric ozone depletion. Yeah, you have heard this as well. We have the ozone that protects the Earth. If this is depleted, then we will be exposed to very harmful or ultraviolet light, and then we will get like a skin cancer and yeah, dangerous thing. So this is what they call as planetary boundaries. Why I'm introducing this? Because this is the easy way, or in terms of quantitative way, to see whether our process will give a certain effect to the environmental or to the planet, and if the globally all of those processes combined together will be sustainable or not for our planet. You can check this. Actually, I gave you the link there from the Stockholm University, I believe, and they have monitored these planetary boundaries over time. So I have the figures from 2009, 2015, 2023, and as you can see here, some figures were not monitored. But now in 2023, we have all the 9 categories monitored, and it's very informative, where if it is green means that we are in a safe operating space, means we are in a good in a good status, while if it is yellow or even it is reddish here, means that this is dangerous. Okay, so well, we see now, for example, the novel entities is in the danger zone. What is novel entities? Novel entities, for example, is a plastic pollution. Plastic is a novel or new type of material for the earth, right? And then it doesn't wait, okay, it doesn't be, sorry, I lost the word. So the plastic will be there for hundreds of years, means that if you throw the plastic, it will be there even long after we die. So the amount of plastic pollution in our land, in our earth, it is already alarming. But there are some good news. Good news, for example, here, the stratospheric ozone depletion. So this is one of the very nice example. If we do something right, we can also reverse the process. So maybe you have heard about Freon. Freon in the past was normally used as a refrigerant for, what is it? For the refrigerator, yeah, for a refrigerator, for air conditioner, for example, they used Freon. But then maybe in the 90s or 80s, the scientists noticed that the freon is actually quite harmful for our ozone because it makes the ozone depleted, and then you have a big hole, for example, in the North Pole. And this is alarming because we were like exposed to the harmful light from the sun. And what the human did, human has come to the agreement to ban freon to be used in the as a refrigerant. So you cannot find freon anymore for the, I mean, legally. So by doing so, this freon is now being limited and not used anymore. And then now we see the effect. So the effect is actually the depleted ozone has recovered, and then this hole is being closed. And now we see that, look, this is always becoming like the good example, or for every other parameters here, they are advocating like, look, if we do something right, like what we did to ozone, we can also make this better. Yeah. So this is the in sustainability. I have already said there are several key indicators for the environment, and they have made into something quantitative, so you can actually calculate this precisely. So for the climate change is measured by the carbon dioxide concentration. I'm not going to discuss this in detail one by one, but you can see the freshwater change. This is calculating about how many water is available for human and planet, and size of forest area is used to show how many land use is changed. Yeah. So we can now do this quantitatively, and this is what is used now to measure or to calculate whether a certain process, a certain activity is actually environmentally sustainable or not by having those 9 different categories measured. On top of that, don't forget, yes, the environmental parameters are very, very heavily discussed. Yeah, I mean, like when you are talking sustainability, most of the discussion is about environment. But now, when we are talking about agriculture and food systems, don't forget we have 3 different aspects, right? The environment. Second one is we still also need to consider about the social aspect of the people, and the third one we need to think about the profitability of the process. So from the people or social indicators, we have several indicators here like labor right, child labor, gender equity, and these several categories can be also used to measure whether the process or our activity, like growing coffee, for example, coffee production, is actually socially sustainable or not. Moving on, this is the economic indicators. Like we can also calculate what we call as life cycle cost, how much cost per nutrient. So we can also calculate if we are talking about protein, for example, if we produce this protein, how many grams, how many consumed protein, and then we can calculate the cost. Yeah. So okay. Mas tolong dipotong di sini. Halo, Assalamualaikum, Prof. Agus. Jadi, yang mana itu? Yang spesies yang mana? Oh, ada Pak di meja saya. Ada di meja. Nanti tak atur nggih. Nggih. Oke, siap. Oke, siap. Nggih. Nanti tak kirim nggih. Ya, oke. Sami-sami nggih. Nah, aku ini. Temu SPI. Oke, Mas. Silakan dilanjutkan. All right. So by using these economic indicators, we can also examine whether the process related to the food system is economically sustainable or not. Okay. So those, as you can see, they are very comprehensive. There are a lot of indicators. There are a lot of metric in terms of environment, social, and socio-economy, and that makes it quite complex process to calculate or to assess whether the process is sustainable or not. So, and don't forget, as I mentioned in the very beginning, once we understand the food chain means that if we want to have a sustainable food systems, you must measure the sustainability starting from the farm until the fork. And this brings us to a method which is called life cycle analysis. Maybe you have heard this, all right? So life cycle analysis, basically to calculate, to measure the entire, for example, environmental or social or economical impacts of a product or service throughout its life cycle, yeah? So in the food system, as I said, throughout means throughout the food chain, from growing the plants or the animals up to the consumption. This is not related to food, but this is a very classic example. Yeah, if we are talking about electricity, you have two options. Let's say here, what I show you, you have the a typical generator where you use petroleum or fuel here to run the generator and then produce the electricity, and then you have the solar panel there. And if you are asked which one is more sustainable, most people they will say, oh, the solar panel will be more sustainable. Why? Because it doesn't use fuel, it doesn't emit any emission, any carbon dioxide to the environment. So there are many beneficial aspects to the use of the solar panel. So what I'm saying here, that is if you see it only from that aspect, but don't forget now, if we are looking from the life cycle assessment, you cannot forget how this solar panel is being made. So to make this solar panel, of course, you have to think about the industry, where the industry, they will produce the solar panel components, for example. In the industry, they emit some emission, carbon dioxide, for example. So if you do the whole life cycle and then you do it properly, and only then you can say which one is more sustainable, because you cannot only see when it is operating, but you have to see the whole process. Okay, and also at the end of the process, what happens when the solar panel is broken? Let's say, when the solar panel is broken, will it be recyclable? Will it be discarded? Will it be in the landfill and becomes a pollution again to the soil? So this is also another thing to consider. So you see, so from the very beginning to the end of the process, that is life cycle assessment. Okay, so this is the last part. yeah, we have learned a bit a complex concept in the sustainability, and now we are trying to combine both what or how to make a sustainable food system. So we are coming back to this now, coming back to the food chain of food systems where we have the primary production all the way to consumption. Again, I will remind you that every process of this, it will need some inputs and it will produce some outputs. The outputs, it can be the one that we want or the one that we actually don't want, like waste, emission, F1, and etc. And means that if we want to assess whether the process, the whole process is sustainable, we have to calculate or measure each stages of this process and then do the life cycle assessment. And after that, we can use the different parameters in environmental, for the environmental indicators, social indicators, or economic indicators, and it will be a lot of work. What I'm trying to say here is, if we want to do this, I know it can be tedious. It is not 1 or 2 days work. It is a lot of work, and it's complex and require many data. Yeah, but that is how if you want to you want to assess or measure the sustainability in a food system uh, properly. So we have to employ the life cycle assessment. All right, so that is how you make the sustainability in a food system. Basically, we must ensure that each process in the system is sustainable, or at least it is environmental friendly, social friendly. So for at the end, the whole system as a whole is sustainable. Yeah. What I'm trying to show you here, by understanding the food chain, by understanding the concept of sustainability, you know that it is quite complicated, yes, but by understanding this, you can start thinking, okay, that's quite complex, but I don't want to do the LCA. No, I mean, like, if you want to do a master or a PhD in this regard, then it is, of course, you can do it. But okay, by understanding this, so what? So what I want us or you all to start thinking is, okay, let's start something with a small step. So this is actually the main aim or the main objective of the whole session. By understanding the sustainability concept in food system, now I'm challenging you, I'm asking you, what can you do to make our food system more sustainable? And actually, it doesn't have to be very complex, like in the case of solar panel and generator. No, you can make small choices. You can make everyday life choices that actually is very close to our life. All right, it doesn't need a very complicated life cycle analysis. Okay, and actually, you can also help to make food systems more sustainable. I will give you some example. The first one. So the first one is by choosing a seasonal or local produce. Seasonal means, like, for example, in Indonesia or in the tropical countries, we have these seasonal fruits, right? For example, let's say mango. Mango is quite seasonal. Means that if you want to buy mango out of season, it means it will be more expensive. All right. However, if you buy it on season, it will be cheaper. And also, we have plenty of produce during the season. If you buy it during the season, you will help to minimize the possibility of waste. You see, now it is sustainable. Local produce, imagine, okay, I know I don't want to, like, for example, forbid you of buying something imported. Of course, you can do it. I mean, like, but now if we look at from the perspective of sustainability, should we buy, let's say, kiwi, which is imported from New Zealand, or we can eat something like orange that is actually grown locally in your country? You can see the difference. When you have it imported from New Zealand, means that the kiwi itself is healthy, it is grown, vegetable is good, but it must be transported. The transport can use air flight, which is very costly. It can be, it can use also a sea ship, for example. And this distribution, this type of transportation, it will use fuel, and then it will have some emission, and you can see it will affect the whole sustainability aspect there. All right. So understanding this, it can help to reduce the emission from transport. It will also support local farmers. Don't forget, we also have some social aspect to be considering, to be considered of, and then also promote the regional food resilience. Second example, composting. It looks simple, yes, yeah. But what happens when we do the compost? Yeah, when we do the composting, we will help enrich the soil, yeah, and then it will what do you call it? Give back the nutrients to the soil, so the soil will be able to support the other plants to grow. This is actually against the use of pesticide. You can make the soil to be rich in nutrients by using, sorry, not pesticide, but fertilizer. By using fertilizer, but fertilizer is not natural. And to produce the fertilizer, imagine they also need some processing equipment. They will need some energy. So basically, it will have a lot of bad impact to the sustainability concept, sustainability aspect, right? Well, if you do the composting, it is natural. You are using the waste, and then you are giving back nutrients. So that is much, much better than the fertilizer in terms of sustainability. Another one, reducing meat. I'm not, sorry, again, I'm not saying that you can't eat meat. Meat is very nutritious. Yeah. I like meat myself. Okay. But you must also understand that producing meat, it takes a lot of inputs. It needs a lot of water. It needs a lot of feed. All right. And compared to, like, say, protein coming from a vegetable source, like soy protein, for example, it is much, much more sustainable. So by reducing the consumption, you also help the impacts from related to the growth of animal in this case, for example. Yeah. So the use of water. Yeah. One of the aspect of parameters in the environmental is the use of water. If you use too much water to produce food, that is not a nice idea as well. So reducing meat consumption is also another example. Planning meals, so avoiding overbuying. So this is also another easy to accept or easy example. If you buy too much, eventually maybe, oh, I want to buy because, oh, this is interesting. Maybe you don't need it, but you buy it because it is cheap, for example. And then it ends up with you keep it in the fridge, and then maybe sometimes you forget it, and then, oh, it spoils. So you are wasting the food. All right. So by planning properly, you will be able to avoid food waste. You can do it. Proper food storage, it needs some knowledge, but I think it's quite easy to find in the internet, where some foods are to be stored in chilled storage, some foods are to be stored in a frozen storage, for example, and some foods are not even to be stored in a chilled temperature. For example, like when you keep banana in the refrigerator, it will even spoil faster. So this also helps you to avoid or to reduce, minimize the food waste. Reusable bags, very classic example. This is to avoid of plastic waste. Okay. This is another, maybe it's not very well campaigned, and that is buying imperfect or ugly produce. Why would I buy imperfect or ugly shaped potato, for example? Well, now if you look at from the perspective of sustainability, this is actually something small that you can do to help a bit. All right. So why? Because this is normally what the consumers do. They don't want to have this ugly shape. If I want to buy the potato, then I will buy something with a nice looking potato. And then what happens after that? The ugly shape, it will be left. It's not being picked by any consumer, and then it will be wasted. So again, it is a food waste. So it is a very small step that you can do as a consumer. By buying this ugly shape, you will help to avoid the food waste. All right. And this is another commercially done, yeah, because the request or the requirement of sustainability is getting more and more important now, and that some consumers, they really want to have products that is sustainable. Some certification is available in the market. One of it is called Rainforest Alliance. This is only just one example. You can find a lot. Yeah, you can also have the fair trade. Yeah, I think some chocolate, some coffee. They have like fair trade symbol. Means that the fair trade that is socially sustainable. They, for example, they buy from farmers that don't employ any child labor, for example. So these certifications are in the products, and if you choose to buy from products that have this sustainable certification, you actually also help the industry to be more sustainable. All right, and this is maybe not the main driver for buying right now in most of the developing countries, but this is one of the driver for the consumers in a more developed countries. But this is nice and should be uh, made more well campaigned. Yeah. Okay, so this is to close my sessions. I hope you learned a lot. Yeah, so we learned three different aspects. You understand the food chain, where the food chain have some food waste, and we have learned as well the sustainability concept. Okay, and then finally we combine those two together, how to employ the sustainability in the food chain or food system, and how you can actually help by doing something small. So I give you a second homework. Yeah, you can also pause this video now. And this homework is also the same. I want you to scan it with your phone and put your own idea or your own example how to support the food sustainability. Something small, something that you can actually do or you have already done in your home, yeah, in your community, for example. And then we are going to have very nice discussion. There are two different topics. The first one is how to reduce the food waste, and the second one here is that it is not only related to food waste, but the sustainability for the food systems in general, in a whole. So thank you so much. Yeah, so this is how, if you want to reach me, that I give you my email there. And yeah, please send me email if you have any things to ask, and then I will be gladly answer to any questions. So I'll see you when we have the synchronous session. Thank you so much. I hope this session is useful. Bye-bye. Pak, ternyata tidak di-record. Sejam ternyata.